If you remember a few weeks ago, I made a video about Australia's former chief scientist, Alan Finkel, and how he was saying, in a nutshell, that hydrogen vehicles are flawed and that they can't compete against the convenience of battery electric vehicles. These are his words, and this is an important guy to say that is a very significant thing. He was the author of the Australian National Hydrogen Strategy, which was supposed to set a vision for a clean, innovative, safe, and competitive hydrogen industry in Australia that benefits all Australians. That was the idea, or to see at least if it's possible and how they could use hydrogen to benefit the country. 5 years later, after the deployment of the Australian secret weapon, the Australian Hydrogen Task Force. That's not their real name, I just made that up. There's literally a handful of hydrogen refueling stations nationally. So just to give you an example, there's one in the entire state of Victoria. One place you can go and buy hydrogen and fuel it into something like a bus or a car. And knowing the Victorian government, there is likely a hydrogen vehicle tax or some sort of new form of hydrogen vehicle stamp duty when they buy one, because I had recently thought actually about moving down to Victoria too, but the government seemed to be really lagging in certain areas, which I won't get into, but to mention a few that are kind of relevant to the channel. EV road tax is a bit nuts. They have to pay 2.5 cents per kilometre they drive. It's not very incentivizing, especially not at this time when incentivizing EVs and the uptake of EVs is a big deal. They really need to be doing that. Neither is the double stamp duty for when you buy a new EV. For example, $100 stamp duty in Queensland if you buy a BYD Dolphin versus $2,500 in Victoria. And the complete lack of any rebate or interest for EVs anywhere. Does anybody have any thoughts on this? If you do, please put them in the comments, because I would really love to hear what you've all got to say about this, especially if you live in Victoria. Before I get into the video, thank you very much to the people that have joined on Buy Me a Coffee, Patreon, YouTube memberships. Links to these will be in the description below, and they cost about $3 each. The cheapest and easiest way to help is just by pressing the like button. Remember to subscribe as well for my daily videos every single day about EV news from around the world. Basically, this Dr. Finkel fellow recently, in an interview, he said that hydrogen is nowhere near as convenient as battery electric vehicles. In the recent video I made, I'll put it in the description below for the end so you can click it and watch that, I talk about the bonkers amount of electricity needed to pump the hydrogen into the car, let alone the prohibitively inefficient cost to producing the hydrogen. So to give you an idea, if you are new to hydrogen, it uses about 7 kilowatt hours of electricity to pump, just to pump 1 litre of it into a car. That's crazy, 7 kilowatt hours, which is enough to drive maybe 90 kilometers, 100 kilometers. But the energy required just to get the hydrogen in a tank and ready to pump into a car before you've pumped it into your car is something like 70. I think it's about 65 to 70 kilowatt hours per litre. It's absolutely insane. So in a way, it's great. The idea that you can run a car on hydrogen, basically just, water, it sounds great when you're 12 years old in a science class. But in practice, is it? I think it's really quite an inefficient way to fuel a car. Just so that you can try and stick to the similar system that we've got now. That would be the main reason, I think, for companies and the governments to want to use hydrogen for you, is so that you can be taxed on something physically that they can sell you, I think that's kind of the big incentive for the government. I understand that there's also an argument that can counter this, which, with regards to how much effort is required to build a battery for an EV and to get the stuff that makes it up inside and then to put it all in the same country, in the same factory to build it and then put it in a car. It's really not a very fair debate given how different these two things are, but it is still an interesting thing to discuss and talk about. So what do you all think about this? If you've got any knowledge on this, put it in the comments, and try and make a nice, neat, long comment so that we can all have a good read, because it is really interesting stuff. So basically, the main story today, a hydrogen fuel cell bus was engulfed in flames when it was charging, or I say charging, they were fueling it up. They were fueling it up in California early on Tuesday morning. But the local bus network operator says that safety mechanisms in the handle that attaches to the car meant that the fire did not spread to primary tanks at the new hydrogen fueling station. So the company, Golden Empire Transit Group, said in a statement, quote, the hydrogen buses were being fueled at the time of the fire. And they also said, quote, one bus was destroyed and only the dispensing portion of the hydrogen fueling station was damaged. Explosions were heard and seen from the tanks on the bus that had just been filled, but the primary tanks of the actual fueling station did not ignite due to safety technology, which is a big deal. You definitely need safety technology around hydrogen stuff. You definitely don't want there to be any explosion or fire or dodgy mechanic stuff going on around hydrogen stuff. The tanks are massive and they contain between 5 and 10,000 psi of pressure, which is crazy. The CEO, Karen King, said the situation this morning could have been worse, but credited the safety mechanisms in place and the swift action of the Bakersfield Fire Department for minimizing the damage. No injuries were reported, nobody died, and this lady also said that it was too soon to know the cause of the fire. So we don't really know what happened there, but it is obviously some sort of mechanical failure, I guess. 100% of new California public transport will be required to be zero emissions by 2040, either using batteries or hydrogen. Golden Empire Transit, which operates in Kern County in Southern California, has also constructed a fueling station for the buses, but did not provide an estimate of the cost of the fire which caused damages to parts of the station. So the California Hydrogen Business Council has argued that hydrogen buses are in part compelling due to their similarities to existing bus fleets. For example, you can fuel them up and then go off for the day. However, safety concerns are one of the main reasons that people remain a bit cautious about hydrogen's role in the transition, including most recently in the United Kingdom. It's a bit ropey to have a massive pressurized tank underneath you in the car. I mean, it's still a bit insane, I think, isn't it? To have 40 litres of a flammable oil under your bum when you're sitting in a car and driving. But we've kind of become accustomed to that normal, even though basically, if you Google this, pretty much every manufacturer has had instances of their cars starting a fire on their own. You don't need a battery electric vehicle for that. You can have petrol and diesel cars that do that. But that's the only option pretty much for the last 70, 80 years. So we're kind of accustomed to that. It's not eye-catching enough. So, of course, battery technology, when we have a battery car that catches fire, it's all over the news, of course. However, safety concerns are one of the main reasons that people remain really cautious about hydrogen's role in the transition, including most recently in the UK. There was a lot of talk on this. But given how inefficient hydrogen technology is and the complexity of the machinery to run it and the cost to manufacture the machinery, store and pump the hydrogen, battery electric vehicles are still clearly the preferred choice for places like the UK, US, Australia. But it is still likely that hydrogen could make a really good solution for long-haul trains, for example, or potentially on buses that drive very long trips. This is also the thought that Dr. Finkel has too. He agrees that the best place for hydrogen tech in the coming years is in these long-haul vehicles like trains and buses. There are places in the world like Japan, actually, where they have sold a fair few hydrogen vehicles, but still, we're talking small numbers. In the middle of last year, there were a total of 7,000 hydrogen vehicles registered on Japanese roads. Not that many, really. So if you enjoyed the video, please click the like button for me so that YouTube knows that people are enjoying my videos, and subscribe for more daily videos about electric vehicles.